studying my peers for now. Should I make a dance and snap thumbs? Fast hi-hats, 808 back drums. Are we selling our souls for 32 pieces of gold? If it's lacking in soul, how can it remain whole? We make music for stripper pose, but no music to think. That's that short-term money that we put in the bank. But the genre's going backwards. I see devolution instead of evolution. This is soul prostitution. The children are fumbling. Even got the elders encouraging, mumbling, watching them stumbling. Day after day is so humbling. Meanwhile, our stock has been plummeting, and they telling me I need to sound like these other niggas. Grown-ass men trying to sound like the younger niggas. Used to have balance. Back in the days, we had talent. Trying to be original was the challenge. Now all these niggas sound the same, and all the beats pound the same. Same cadence, same drums, all that shit sounded lame. 20 niggas trying to sound like Future, and I love rockin' Future, but that style is for future. Think you niggas need a different producer. Hope that bullshit crash your computer. Ain't nothing cool about being a loser. Brothers and sisters, you are tuned into another episode of the Gospel of Malcolm X podcast. I am your host, Brother Eric. As always, it is my pleasure to be back and in the studio with you once again. I like to take the time out, as I always do, to give a special shout out to all of the listeners and supporters of the Gospel of Malcolm X podcast. So today, I'm going to try to jump right into it. We're going to be doing our third and hopefully last installment of sort of this P. Diddy series. I guess technically it's like the fourth installment, because I did one about 5 months ago in which I covered the connection between Diddy and the Nation of Islam. That basically his cleanup man, I think the name was Fahim Muhammad, is a supporter, member, associate of the Nation of Islam. You go to his Instagram page, you can see posts of Elijah Muhammad, etc. The Nation of Islam did a story on this guy, Fahim Muhammad, who is listed in Lil Rod's lawsuit as Diddy's cleanup man, the person that made even a body go away on behalf of Diddy. And so you got to wonder if this person will be testifying in the upcoming trial, because so far they are alleging that this was against Diddy, that this was a racketeering type of thing, which means that there is a organization, so to speak. But the only person that's been brought in and charged so far has been Diddy. So we have to see who's going to be testifying against him. And I'm going to maybe guess that one of the people, if we don't hear that this person has been arrested, that may be testifying against Diddy or could be called to testify, could be Fahim Muhammad, especially as he's listed as his cleanup guy. And if he isn't called to testify on any of this stuff, I would find that to be a little interesting, something that we need to look into even further. But that wasn't the purpose for this show. When I did the next three installments, I talked more about the spiritual side of things. So we talked about how abusing women, the abuse of women, mistreating women kind of could bring bad karma on a person, especially a man, but for other women too, but especially a man. And so we talked some about Kim Porter and the suspicion that whatever happened to Kim Porter wasn't natural causes and may have involved Diddy himself. And then we talked about the abuse of all the other women and how what has started happening to Diddy, the unraveling that is going on with him, doesn't seem accidental. It seems like something that is both targeted in the physical realm, but also something that is a manifestation from the spiritual realm, and more specifically, some type of feminine power. So in the second installment, we talked about the Haitian Lua, or deity, that Diddy has tattooed on his back. He has a tattoo of the Haitian Lua Urzali Dontour. And I wasn't quite satisfied with my description and some of the things that I played in the last one. So I found a Haitian source, and I'm going to give her credit for her information, Chronicles of a Zoe. And she does a good job of detailing exactly what Urzali Dontour, the Haitian Lua or deity, is about, how it operates, etc. and it's just a lot more clear, a lot more concise. So I wanted to follow up on that last episode with the part 3. Hopefully the final in the P. Diddy thing, because I want to start talking about other stuff until something else breaks in the P. Diddy case. But I wanted to nonetheless do a better job of covering it. And you guys know I've been away for a while, so sometimes it takes me a minute to kind of get back in my groove, get a rhythm going, etc. And so I wanted to bring the information to you and bring it to you a lot more clear and concise than what was in the last episode. And so then, in order to follow up on what we talked about in the last episode, we are going to I have a video of Dr. Umar, because I talked a bit about Dr. Umar in the last episode and was very critical of Dr. Umar. And we still going to be a little bit critical of Dr. Umar in this one, but he kind of cleared some things up. And so I wanted to play that as well to kind of go back over what I talked about on the last episode. So I got both of these videos queued up. In the words of P. Diddy, I don't want to be scrambling and scraping for ish. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll start with Chronicles of a Zoe. And you guys can check out her YouTube page. It's literally Chronicles of a Zoe. That is ZOE. She's Haitian or Haitian American. And she covers a lot of spiritual topics from what I saw, and a lot of Haitian topics, etc. And I think she does a very good job of covering this topic. So I wanted to go ahead and play this.
Chanel and Jodia, as you guys can see by the title, we're going to be talking about P. Diddy, his karma, especially dealing with the Ursula Dontour tattoo on his back. Now, before we even get into that, I would love to hear your comments down below. What do you guys think is going on with Diddy right now? Because I'm not even going to lie to y'all.
Let me also say that this video that she's recorded is 3 months ago. So this wasn't like right around the time that he was arrested. So this was 3 months ago. So we do what? August, July, June. So, and maybe even before that, I don't know the exact date, but it says 3 months ago. So this was a while ago that she did this video. So also put that in context as well, that this is not a video that was after his arrest or anything. This was a few months ago.
I literally ignored this when I first saw it. I was like, ain't no way Diddy got the nerve, got the audacity to be treating women and children the way he does with Ursula Dontour on his back, because it just n'est pas possible, okay? Like, it's just, it cannot be possible. So, of course, before we even get into that, please make sure you guys, if you are interested, you go and you invest in my channel. You can now invest in all 3 of my YouTube channels. It is not a game. It is not a scam. You can now invest right now in all 3 of my YouTube channels and get a piece of my monthly ad revenue. This is a one-time purchase. You hold on to your channel revenue token, and as my channels grow, your token grows with it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I will never be doing this again, and once the opportunity is over, it is over. Thank you guys so much for always supporting me. Shout outs to those of you guys who have already invested, and if you guys decide to invest today, thank you so much for investing today. Now, of course, roll that intro.
Let me skip ahead. Let's see. I might have to jump a little bit ahead.
At his houses in both locations.
I don't think people understand what it's like to be traumatized by somebody famous.
Cassie Ventura's earth-shattering November 2023 lawsuit against Combs is chilling for a number of reasons. Ventura's attorneys claimed that Combs, quote, often punched, beat, kicked, and stomped on Ms. Ventura.
Combs is allegedly a person who uses violence and drugs and sexual abuse to harm his victims.
Lawsuits associate Combs with creating and distributing explicit material for revenge.
A Syracuse University college student says that Sean Diddy Combs took her out to dinner, that she was drugged, and that she was drugged for the purpose of a sexual assault, and that she was so drugged that she could not fight back.
End of April 2024, Joy Dickerson-Neal claims that Combs, as per his alleged modus operandi, not only drugged and sexually assaulted her, but filmed the encounter without her knowledge. Combs and his other son Christian were sued by Grace Omarcake. who accused them of covering up a sexual assault committed against her by Christian. Lawsuit also claims that Combs's employees often witnessed his crimes, but said nothing for fear of retribution.
Diddy about to call to a point. Like, Diddy really on some bullshit for real. Because I ain't gonna lie, when I first saw that tattoo Diddy had and all you guys kept sending it to me, I was just like, ain't no fucking way Diddy got the nerve, gall, audacity to literally do all the shit that he's done and have a tattoo of Urzuli Dontor on his back, okay? So if you guys are not aware, a few years ago, Diddy posted on Instagram this tattoo of Urzuli Dontor on his back. And the caption said something along the lines of, "She has my back, I have my front." And of course, a lot of people who did not know about Haitian voodoo or anything about spirituality chopped this up to just, you know, a regular Mary photo, sort of mother and child photo. But those of us who know that this is Urzuli Dontor. Now, I've made an Urzuli Dontor and Freda video as well as a Grand Urzuli video. Please make sure you guys check that out if you guys are not familiar with any Urzuli entity. However, if you guys are not familiar, it's going to be hard to follow this video. But just a quick little preface on what Urzuli is. Urzuli is a Haitian voodoo loi or deity, but one of the most powerful and most popular. She is known as a mother loi, and a lot of people do serve her. But most importantly, there are many different facets of Urzuli. It is believed that the tattoo on Diddy's back is Urzuli Dontor, which is known to be one of the most volatile depictions of Urzuli. Now, Urzuli Dontor is actually technically my mother-in-law, which is actually very hilarious. Now, fun fact, all the Urzulis actually run in my family. So it's very interesting that this man has this on his back because Urzuli Dontor is actually the pictorial depiction of Urzuli, and the pictorial loi are the loi that are more than likely derived from Haiti themselves. Now, there are different depictions of voodoo loi. Now, I'm surprised I haven't made a dedicated video of the different families of loi because honestly, there's just so many, and there's different.
And I know I don't normally do video, at least not as of yet. But if you guys see the visual for the last episode, you can actually see the tattoo on his back, and you can actually see exactly what the tattoo looks like and what the depiction looks like as well.
Different. A lot of them are very subjective, but there's very, very like specific definitions of them. But like I said, the pictorial are the ones that derive from Haiti. The Rada are usually very, very chill. They're very, very sweet. That is the Urzuli Freda, and then you have Grand Urzuli, which is like the mother of the Urzulis. Like they're very, very different. So when it comes to the families, we have a lot of different ones, but some of them that a lot of you guys have heard of that I've mentioned on this channel are, of course, the pictorial, the Rada, the Gidid, the cousins, the barons, and there's so many different ones that just keep on going and going and going because there's so many different loi that just like, honestly, I think there's a different loi born like every couple of days. So when it comes to the pictorial loi, they are volatile. Okay, they are very, very hot. They are vicious. When they're happy, but when they're mad, and they just do not stop. Very, very vicious loi. They're very, very specific loi, and they do not necessarily. They're not fucking around. Okay, like when you serve those loi, when those loi pick you or you work with those loi. Literally, they are specific in what it is that they ask of you. There are also specific boundaries you just do not cross. And there are specific things that all these loi are about and specific things that these loi just do not like that you just should not do. So when it comes to Urzuli, she is known to defend women and children hardcore. That's what she's about. When it comes to injustice against women and children, abuse victims, and the LGBTQIA, those are her core values. Now, the LGBTQIA thing is very subjective. A lot of people feel like, oh, well, no, that's something the white people made up. I personally know that to be true, so much so that even recently I've actually been told that if you are one of her servants and you serve her incorrectly, it's been known that some of her servants have been known to act out in homosexual ways. So
now, speaking of that, this is what I was talking about, is something that we've noticed with Diddy, where there seems to be some type of homoeroticism to a lot of his fantasies, where we could see that this could possibly be an influence for some of that type of behavior.
Oh, she's not fucking around with you. Now, going back to the LGBTQIA situation, even though there are some people that feel like that's something that the white people made up, I personally do not agree. You guys can feel free to tap down below. It is very interesting because a lot of people have also accused Diddy of dibbling and dabbling in the male anatomy with a lot of different celebrities. A lot of men who are serving her impurely, who are actually doing things they shouldn't be doing, have been known to do a lot of gay things, have been known to like literally do a lot of things that were, you know, inappropriate with men. And, you know, that's like been their punishment in a way. But since the spirit of Ursley is a extremely feminine spirit, for a lot of her devotees, it is known that she sleeps with a lot of her devotees, which most of the time happen to be men. And it is known that a lot of men, especially in the Haitian religion, are very, very homophobic. So for them to be sleeping with men, it's like, oh my God, like I slept with a man. So a lot of times, a lot of these men, I don't want to say they don't know they're doing it, but it's like, oh, look at you. Like you're so manly. Oh, like you don't sleep with men. Well, there you go. So that's the best way to explain that. I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from with that. So it's funny because like when my friend first told me that, I said, ain't no fucking way, because I ain't never heard of that. And I actually looked into it. And apparently, yeah, it's pretty damn common. So it's not uncommon for certain Ursley devotees to be out here sleeping with men. So for those of you guys who have men out there that have men that serve Ursley, be very, very careful. Make sure that they're actually doing everything correctly, because they might just be in bed with men. And it just might be their punishment or whatever the case may be.
And so hopefully she's communicating to you, if I haven't communicated to you in this episode or the last episode, the type of violence that can come with serving a luau or etc., and either doing the things that this particular deity does not like, or if you stop serving them, it could cause extreme chaos in a person's life by either if they stop serving the luau or if they start doing things like, in this case, we have a feminine deity who's all about the protection of women and children. And then we have somebody that could have potentially eliminated the mother of his children, which is crazy if he's actually guilty of that, which a lot of people seem to believe, even though he's not charged with it. But let's just say he is, hypothetically. Then we have not only a woman who was taken out unjustifiably so in Kim Porter, but then we have 3 children, I believe she had for him, that now don't have a mother and were harmed by this act. So that could certainly bring all types of chaos. But even if that in itself isn't true, just all of the other things that he's responsible for beyond Kim Porter, and even the abuse of Kim Porter that is talked about, even if he didn't participate in her transitioning, and then Cassie, and then so many other women being accused that he's been accused of harming. It's not a good thing, and it will bring the wrath. And I mean, you can imagine if they say hell have no fury like a woman scorned, and we're talking about like a earthly woman, you can only imagine a spirit woman.
All right, so let's clarify, just so no one takes my words out of context. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being part of the LGBTQIA. However, a lot of people feel like it is 100% wrong, especially in the Caribbean community, especially in the Haitian community. So the whole idea with this is a lot of people do frown upon being gay or being lesbian or anything of the sort. A lot of spirits, okay, especially Urzuli Duntor in this case, will punish you by making you act out by having same-sex relations, because of course it's not wrong to us, because, well, a lot of us watching this, because it's like, it's not that serious, okay, like you're gay, you're lesbian, whatever. But for a lot of people, it's like their worst nightmare, you know, having to mess with somebody that's the same sex. Like, for us, it's not that serious. For them, it's like, oh my God, no, like, what did I do? Right? So that's what I mean by
serious.
that, just for some clarification.
That's
it is 2024, but sadly, you can still be killed in a lot of these countries for being with the same sex. So if someone were to find out that you were engaging in any same-sex situation, like, it would literally be the death of you. So serves as good punishment for a lot of these spirits. Now, I know there's going to be some people like, oh, well, how about if these people were just secretly gay and now they're acting out on their fantasies? Nah, a lot of these people, listen, what I'm telling y'all, I did the research. I specifically went to people who serve Urzuli and asked people who were very close to people who actually serve Urzuli. Trust me, these people aren't gay. It has a lot to do with, let me not give too much away. Let's just say that a lot of it has to do with them just not doing what they're supposed to do properly, and that's how this manifests itself. It's not them just acting out on their desires or fantasies, le job mote, or when the spirit comes through them, okay? I know there's going to be some people that say that. That's not what it is. You are not to do things or go against boundaries that are set forth when you are messing with these spirits. There's too many people that come into different bouts of spirituality because they think that it is a free-for-all. They think that they could come into different belief systems and come into different bouts of spiritualism, especially Haitian Voodoo and different African spiritual beliefs, and just do whatever it is that they want. That is not how it goes. They think that they come into Voodoo, they come into Santeria, they come into Obia, they come into all these things thinking, oh, well, it's a free-for-all. Oh, well, you know, since I don't have to go to church every Sunday. Oh, well, since I have all of these spirits, since I have the Orisha, since I have whatever, that means that I could ask for whatever and I'm not bound to any rules. That's not how this works. And that's why you consistently hear people dying because they did voodoo. But that's not why. They're dying because they're not following the rules. They're dying because they're trying to hex people. They're dying because they're trying to curse people. They're dying because they're doing things incorrectly and they think that there's no rules to this shit. They're dying because they're sitting here and they're doing things that they know they damn well should not be doing. In the case of Diddy more than likely bit off way more than he could chew. And he more than likely went against the rules of his loi, which is more than likely Urzuli Duntor, because he got a whole damn back piece of her. Now, when it comes to Urzuli Duntor, like I said, she does not play about women and children. If you are going to harm a woman or a child, especially repeatedly, in the case of Diddy, which he has, she is going to come after you tenfold. These are individualistic practices. Just because one person can do something doesn't mean that you can do it. Just because one person is given leeway doesn't mean that you are given that same leeway. Whatever spirits you serve, you have to serve those spirits according to whatever rules and boundaries that they have set forth. Okay, like for example, Obatala, right? So Obatala is one of those spirits that is very cool, calm, collected. So his servants are very cool, calm, collected. There's certain ways that you cannot handle yourself as an Obatala servant. Like you should not be out drinking and wilding and smoking and doing the most, but that doesn't mean all of his servants are going to be that way. He might not care if you do certain things, but at the same time, most of his servants are going to be a certain way and carry themselves a certain way. When it comes to Urzily, most of her servants are going to be a certain way. Most of them are not going to be shitty ass people who are abusing women and children, and the ones that you see who are harming women and children are more than likely not going to be having a good time in life. So you guys are probably thinking, okay, so why is Diddy not dead then? Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you guys are not thinking that the worst thing to ever happen in life is death. The worst thing that could ever happen to you is definitely not death, okay? For a lot of people, death is the easy way out. For a lot of people, dying is literally not the worst thing that could ever happen to them. For a lot of people, embarrassment is worse. For a lot of people, their secrets coming out is worse. For a lot of people, losing all the money they have in the world, going to jail, having their child taken away from them, having shame put on their name is worse than death. And what you're seeing right now happening to Diddy is honestly worse than death. The man's net worth is falling. Collaborations are being taken from him. His money is falling as we speak, and it's only going to go down from here. This is just the beginning of it. Consistently, we are going to see so many things come out to the forefront of what Diddy has done. And it's crazy because he's been getting away with so many things, from murder allegations to forcing women to get abortions and beating women senseless. There is literally so many things that Diddy has done that I'm sure has not come to the forefront yet. And I guarantee you the things that we're going to hear about Diddy are probably going to have our jaws to the floor. Everybody was so shocked about surviving R. Kelly. I'm sure surviving P. Diddy in real time is going to be 10 times more entertaining, because P. Diddy has literally been able to skate with the help, whatever spirits he's been serving. And I know for a lot of people watching this, you guys are probably thinking, oh wow, I should definitely get into some sort of spiritualism because these spirits are going to help me do so many things, and I'm going to be able to do this, that, and the third and not be able to be detected. It's all fun and games until you fuck with the wrong person, and it's all fun and games until you start getting cocky, and it's definitely all fun and games until you get caught up fucking with the wrong person at the wrong time. And most importantly, till you sit here and do something that you know you're not supposed to do.
So she really cooking with this. And like I was saying, this is like I said, this is before everything really unfolded. At this time, maybe the writing was on the wall, but you can hear she's really cooking and really kind of prophesied everything that came to light.
Be doing. Karma's always a bitch, and karma don't care about spirits. At the end of the day, you shouldn't be out here doing bad things to people when you're messing with any type of spirituality. Magic, spiritualism, and all of that is here to balance the earth. It's not here to boost your ego. And the problem with humans is that a lot of people will sit here and get into these practices just to boost their ego. They sit here on a power trip and dibbling and dabbling in so many of these different spiritual practices because they have little dick syndrome. They want to be part of something that makes them feel bigger than what they are, and they just simply get carried away. Diddy has literally been accused of some heinous things that sadly more than likely are true, and we're going to start seeing it. I feel so bad for all his victims, especially Cassie. It's absolutely disturbing how many people are making jokes about everything that she's had to go through, and it's crazy how many other people have probably had to succumb to a lot of his violence and recklessness. And it's gonna be very interesting to see what's to come for the rest of this year for him, because I guarantee you everything that he's going through right now is more than likely because of Urzily, because Urzily does not play that. You're sitting here with a tattoo of the protector of women and children on your back. Meanwhile, you are hurting women and children and those alike. That doesn't make any logical sense. But with that being said, it's just be very, very careful, guys, because at the end of the day, don't be out here dibbling and dabbling in things that you don't give a fuck about because you want power and just because you want to one-up people. Because at the end of the day, it's always going to bite you in the ass. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, so yeah, that's Chronicles of a Zoe. You guys can check out her channel. I'm going to get into some of the Dr. Umar stuff now, and I think Chronicles of a Zoe she really chronicled some of the spiritual causes of stuff that I was talking about, and how this all manifested. And what Dr. Umar is going to get into is some of the causes that may have brought things out on the physical plane. Some of the hidden causes that aren't necessarily spiritual, but they are hidden on the physical plane. So in my first installment, and I may have talked about this some in the pre-installment, I'll call it, the one I did a couple of moments ago. But in my first installment, I talked about the liquor company that Diddy was involved in. And this is what Dr. Umar is going to be talking about. It's very interesting because Diddy put a lawsuit against this company for racism, but that lawsuit was funny because he was trying to bring them down and get a big bag by bringing a lawsuit against them. But really, it was Cassie's lawsuit, which just brung everything out of control. Was was the start of a lot of what we're seeing here. So I'm going to let Dr. Umar kind of defend himself, because he was saying that everyone was saying that he was defending Diddy. And so he kind of wanted to not defend Diddy or clarify his point. So I will go ahead and play some of this. This clip is coming from The Art of Dialogue. It's like a 31-minute video. I don't think we're going to finish the whole video because I really can't really do 31 minutes of Dr. Umar, but I'm going to go into it as much as I can. And then when I get tired of hearing Dr. Umar, we'll go ahead and wrap up the show for the day. But the other thing that I want to talk about before I get into the Dr. Umar clip is just the involvement of all these quote unquote moguls while they all have to deal in alcohol. I think that that's very interesting because we see 50 Cent dealing in alcohol. I believe Jay-Z deals in alcohol. Diddy, of course, we know made a lot of his money from alcohol. And it's very interesting that all of these moguls have to deal in alcohol. And if you know me, you know I'm actually kind of a 50 Cent fan. And I like the fact that when he came out, he was dealing in like vitamin water, etc. And I really don't like the fact that he doesn't deal in alcohol. And on top of that, not only does he deals in alcohol, but on top of him dealing in alcohol, he also doesn't drink, which means that he knows the risk associated with dealing with alcohol. So he's like, someone had asked him about it, like, why do you sell alcohol if you don't drink? And he's like, shit, I sold crack and I didn't smoke crack either. So that was a very interesting response from 50 Cent. But most crack dealers, they don't get high off their own supply because they know the damage that crack can do. And for me, the fact that all of these quote unquote moguls are dealing in alcohol reminds me of the slave trade. And one of the components, and hopefully I can pull this up while Dr. Umar is talking, one of the major components of the slave trade was rum. Rum played a major component in these Africans' willingness to sell their own people. And I think that that's very interesting that liquor had to play a role in this trade. And I think that there's something spiritual behind that. And what do we call liquors? We call it what? Wines and spirits. And so there is a spiritual thing that is involved with these liquors and with this alcohol. And we really have to evaluate how much we really want to be in the alcohol business in the first place. And is there some karmic consequence for even being involved in alcohol? Will we see somebody like 50 Cent or Jay-Z eventually take a fall? And I'm not saying that I wish that on either one of those brothers, but I'm just saying we see with this alcohol thing, and then P. Diddy, his issues are much bigger than just him selling alcohol. But I do believe that there is it's literally called spirits. I do believe that there is a spiritual component to the sale of alcohol. So I'm going to go ahead and play the Dr. Umar video now.
No, I had made a comment on my social media earlier today because I was a little disappointed in the fact that so many of our people misinterpreted my comments about Sean Puffy Combs as being indicative of my desire to see him evade accountability for any crimes that he may have committed. So to clarify that, this is where I stand on the Sean Puffy Combs indictment. If Sean Puffy Combs is guilty on any of the 3 counts of that federal indictment, if he's guilty of sexually trafficking people against their will, if he's guilty of participating in arson and bribery and kidnapping and all of these things that they're accusing him of, if they can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he engaged in these things, then like anyone else.
And let me also say this, the proof is not beyond a shadow of a doubt. Just to correct that, the proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. There's going to be very few things in life that you're going to be able to prove beyond a quote unquote shadow of a doubt, but it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Could a reasonable person assume that this is true? This deals with a question of reason here. So beyond a reasonable doubt, it's not beyond a shadow of a doubt.
If you do the crime, you should do the time. But when I look at those indictments, first of all, when I look at the racketeering count of the indictment, and of course, I'm not an attorney, but when I look at racketeer influence corrupt organization, I'm saying to myself, Sean Combs, from what I understand, because I don't know the man personally, he did not build Bad Boy on criminal money. Bad Boy was built legitimately through the legal channels of the music industry. He might have engaged in crime using Bad Boy property after he built Bad Boy. But did he use criminal funding in crime to create Bad Boy? I don't think he did. Now, maybe RICO extends to you simply engaging in crime on company time. Now, if they're saying he sexually trafficked women on company time and that constitutes RICO, then he might be guilty. But everybody who knows Puff knows that he came into the music industry the right way, he hustled the right way, and he built his empire the right way.
Now, the right way is very subjective. Legally and the right way, two different things, because there's just too many people that would say that they were screwed over by Puffy, whether it's Biggie, who there's evidence that he was planning to leave. The guy, Mark, forget his name, was screwed over. Almost everyone that had a deal with Puff, Mace, Black Rob, Loon, all of these people have complaints about the way that the business went. And eventually, before all of this news broke, Puffy gave everybody their publishing back. And that to me was a red flag that something like this or even bigger was going down with Puff.
It appears that all the freak-offs in the alleged sexual trafficking, the alleged interstate prosecution, that may have come after the fact. So the question becomes, can he still be convicted of RICO charge if he simply engaged in sexual activities that did not directly have to do with the business, but he did it on company time. He did it in company property. So that would be a clarifying issue that I would like to see explained. So that's one piece. Now, when I look at the sexual trafficking, again, he could be innocent, he could be guilty. But when I look at a Sean Puffy Combs being a mogul, being as popular who he is, as he is, I don't see why he would need to kidnap people and sexually traffic them across state lines and then force them to engage in sexual behavior. I really can't see that. Again, I'm not saying he's innocent. I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm simply saying, as thirsty as people can be, men and women, for fame, for attention, I don't think Sean Puffy Combs has to force anybody, okay, into sexual trafficking. I don't see him needing to sell people against their will across state lines to engage in sex. I don't see it. I do not believe he's guilty of sex trafficking, but I could be wrong because I don't know what the evidence is. So the racketeering piece, I'm a little uncertain of. The sex trafficking piece, On the surface, I don't believe he's guilty of that because I don't think he needs to forcibly sell anybody or traffic anyone. Now, the third count of the federal indictment is where I think they might can get him. Interstate prostitution. Did Sean Puffy Combs influence people, pay people, bribe people to come across state lines and engage in sexual activity? He may very well be guilty of that. So then the question becomes, for me, what is the maximum he can get? Fed time for engaging in interstate prostitution. And interestingly, when you look at the federal definition of prostitution, it does not require an exchange of money. It could be a promise. It could be a material benefit. And you know, Puffy, he kind of flashy. All the hip hop guys who got money, they pretty flashy. So he might say, hey, if you do this, I'll give you this. Or what if he just gave them rewards for complying with his request? In other words, there was no upfront business arrangement for sex. There was no upfront business arrangements for sex. Hypothetically, he brings them into New York. He brings them into LA. He brings them into Miami. They do what they do. And as a means of him of flexing his power and his money, I'm going to buy you this car. I'm going to take care.
Now, guys, I know you guys aren't watching the video, but while he is talking about all of this stuff, he literally has on a Malcolm X jacket and some type of army fatigue kufi. But he has on the army fatigue jacket with Malcolm X's name on it, the X, big old X in red, which I think is ironic. Wearing a Malcolm X jacket and kind of low-key defending Diddy, which is the irony.
Pay your bills. She wasn't expecting nothing but time with Puff. She wasn't expecting nothing but participation in the freak-off. But because she was rewarded for her participation in the freak-off, does that meet the federal definition of prostitution? It's the same thing with my RICO charge question. I don't believe he built his music empire illegally, but if he engaged in illegal activity non-related to the music empire, but he used music empire property to do it, does that also meet the federal definition of a RICO charge? And me personally, Art, I believe the reason they went RICO and the reason they went Fed is they want to completely destroy Sean Puffy Combs publicly and financially, because this could have very easily been state charges. The feds don't come in quickly to take up cases. They came in and took this up. And as you know, the feds have a 97% conviction rate. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying somebody wants Sean Puffy Combs completely destroyed. And I think I know who it is. I believe it is Diageo. I believe it is the British-based liquor company that Puffy was doing business with. They're one of the biggest liquor companies in the world. They market and sell some of the most popular brands of liquor, including Ciroc. And Diddy had an agreement.
All right, so this is kind of a more clarified version of what I was getting into when I was talking about Diageo. It's an $85 billion company. As I talked about in my first installment of this was no pushover type of thing. Now, Diddy's whole beef with this company, and Umar will talk about it later, is that basically they were promoting his Ciroc as it was an urban brand, but it is an urban brand. And there's nothing wrong with being an urban brand. You have brands that are urban brand. E&J is an urban liquor. There's other urban liquors. And so the ego really got him over the top where he thought that he could sue these people over the way that they were promoting Ciroc. And Ciroc was never going to be a top shelf liquor. And I mean, it is what it is. But the ego really made him go against these people where he was in way over his head, had done way too much dirt to other people where he didn't even have the moral ground to stand on to be able to even do this. So, I mean, basically their response in and eventually taking him down. It's like, oh, you want to F over us and talk about us effing over you, but what about all of the people that you've been effing over, all of the record contracts that you effed over? And then next thing you know, after he put out this lawsuit and Cassie put out her lawsuit, the lawsuits for him still haven't stopped.
With them where they would help him market his De Leon tequila brand. And Diddy took issue with Diageo because they had described the De Leon tequila liquor, Puffy's brand, they described it to their customer base as if it was an inner city, urban, quote unquote, ghetto, hip hop type of liquor.
They didn't call
and
it
Puffy
ghetto.
took issue with that because he said, I'm a global icon. I'm a hip hop mogul. Don't limit my product just to black people. And by doing that, you're dissuading white people and non-blacks from buying my liquor. You're cutting my sales low, and I think you're doing it on purpose because you don't want De Leon tequila to outsell all your other European controlled brands. So Puffy accused Diageo of racial discrimination
All of the money goes
in
to
advertising
them. So what
and
difference
marketing.
would it make?
Diageo got upset with Puff, British-based company. They said, you done already made $1 billion off of us. How dare you sue us and try to make a few more billion off of us? So they tried to get the case thrown out. But the judge allowed the case to proceed because Diageo claimed that there was a clause in their contract with Puff that did not allow him to ever take them to court. Any grievances, according to the contract,
That's common, guys. It
Diageo
has to be
alleges
handled through
needed to
arbitration.
be solved outside of court. But the
That's
judge
common.
sided with Puff and allowed the lawsuit to go forward. So Diageo is losing black money because of this racial discrimination piece. Other companies don't want to do business with them because they don't want to be branded as anti-black, even if they are, because everybody knows we disproportionately spend more money on liquor than any other group. So Diageo is
Isn't that
losing
something?
money. Then on top of that, Puff then already made $1 billion off of them, and now Puff is suing them for a few more billion. So what do? They decide to settle out of court. Now check this out. Diageo and Puff settled out of court in January 2024. Puffy's homes are raided in March. There's no way you're going to convince me that a company that powerful, Diageo operates in 180 of 194 countries in the world. They operate in 180 out of 194 countries in the world. You are not going to convince me that 1 + 1 does not equal 2. There is no way they were forced to settle with Puffy in January, and less than 2 months later, his homes are raided. And I'm going to tell you how I believe Puffy gave them the ammunition to go after him, Art. When Cassie made her accusations against Puff, he settled in about 24 hours. And they settled in November of 2023. Mind you, he's already in court with Diageo since the spring of 2023. Watch this timeline. He sues Diageo in the spring. Cassie comes out in the fall. He settles with Cassie in 24 hours. Diageo is watching this. So when Diageo decides to settle with Puff outside of court, they did this knowing full well we're about to go after you and destroy you. You are messing with the Illuminati.
All right, so we're going to slow down on the conspiracy theory part of this, which I'm not about conspiracy theory. I'm certainly not dismissing it. I believe that this is one of the valid hidden reasons that we're seeing this takedown in the physical realm. But like I said, things start in the spiritual realm, and we addressed that earlier. I want to talk about the role that rum played here. And so I did a little, bringing a little research into the show here. And so basically rum played a significant role in the transatlantic slave trade as a part of the triangular trade between Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Here's how it functioned within the system. So it functioned, number one, as currency for slave traders. Rum, particularly from the Caribbean, notably from colonies like Barbados and Jamaica. Y'all haven't had Haitian rum before, though. That barbacoa. Was often used as currency to purchase enslaved Africans, Europeans, and American traders would ship rum to West Africa where it was exchanged for captured Africans, who were then transported across the Atlantic to be sold in the Americas. So let me say here, starting with point one, literally the sale of slaves. We always talk about the role that other Africans played in selling their own brothers and sisters. May have not even happened if this wasn't for alcohol. Like, rum played a major role in this. They were literally selling the lives, men, women, children, selling human flesh bodies, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, babies, pregnant women. Everybody can go for this alcohol. You telling me that that's not something very spiritually powerful? I saw one thing, and I'm not sure of the accuracy of this, but I'm still going to say it because of how absurd it was. There was a brother. What's this brother's name? I actually been to his house. He's on YouTube. I met him in person. Search for Uhuru. He did a show where he was in Ghana. I believe it was Ghana, and he was like at the Amina joint, and he saw like the slave castles and whatever. And then one of the brothers was showing him like some of the numbers, and it was like 40 slaves for like one bottle of rum. It was something crazy like that. Crazy stuff. And so with this rum, from my understanding, and we'll get into it later, this was a self-fulfilling thing, because in order to make the rum, you got to have sugar. So if you got a bunch of slaves, that you could just have your slaves make the rum. And so the rum production is going to be basically of little to no cost for you. And then you just take that rum back to Africa and get more and more slaves. But not only did rum and alcohol play a major role in the oppression of and the enslavement of African people, even if you're one of those people that call yourselves Native American, etc., and you have like Native American roots, alcohol played a major role in basically how they stripped the land and divided and took advantage of the Native Americans. They definitely gave the Native Americans alcohol as well, which the Native Americans called as firewater. And the alcohol was basically something that was used to knock them off their square. And before you know it, you're holding the bottle and the white man is holding the land. The people say that with the Bible all the time, but it's very accurate in terms of the alcohol trade. So the number two way in which alcohol was used in the transatlantic slave trade was production and labor. Enslaved Africans were forced to work on sugar plantations in the Caribbean and the Americas, and sugar was the key ingredient in rum production. The labor, these enslaved people were directly tied to the massive output of sugar and in turn rum. The economic driver, rum became a highly profitable product in Europe and the American colonies. The demand for rum created a feedback loop that fueled the continued importation of enslaved Africans, and the plantation's owners sought more labor to increase sugar and rum production. Trade for goods in North America. In the colonial North Americas, rum was both produced and exported. New England, in particular, was a major producer of rum, which was then used in the trade with the Caribbean and Africa. The sale and the trade of rum connected the American colonies to the broader Atlantic economy that relied on the exploitation of slave labor. In summary, both rum is a product made from enslaved people and a commodity used in the very transaction that perpetuated slavery. It was the central element in the economic structure of the transatlantic slave trade. So this is what I'm talking about, y'all. Like, not only were they selling rum to the Africans in order to get slaves, they were using the slaves to make more rum to sell to the Africans to get slaves. Like, that is crazy. Like, you basically have a feedback loop, and it's just like the perfect system. The economic role of slave labor. So we're going to cover this just a little bit more, and then I'll get back to it. So slave labor was required to make rum. I'll get into that next. rum's value in the trade. Rum was viable as a traded commodity, especially in the triangular trade. It was a key item exchanged for enslaved Africans and sold for high profits in Europe and the American colonies. However, the profits from the rum trade were not as high as the overall profits generated from slave labor itself, which supported the entire plantation's economy. But that's cool because you could just sell the rum, get the slaves, and then you can have the slaves make the rum and then get more slaves, and then have the slaves do other things, but still have some slaves making rum. And that's just crazy. While rum was a significant product, the wealth generated by enslaved labor was far more substantial because it involved the continuous production of raw materials, sugar, cotton, tobacco, and goods for the global market. Was slave labor required to make rum? Yes, the rum making process was entirely dependent upon the sugar cane harvested by enslaved people on plantations. And if y'all don't know anything about that sugar cane, like, I think that, like, it really does something with your hands when you go in and like you pulling the sugar cane. Like, that's like torturous work. And a lot of these people on these islands were subjected to even more crazier forms of torture. Not even more crazier, but crazy forms of torture nonetheless, because a lot of these people were away from their wives, etc. Not that people in America weren't being tortured and stuff as well, but with these people being away from their wives and away from any type of I'm not going to say that their wives were supervising them, but they were able to just pretty much have some type of unsupervision where there was just a lot more going on these islands. Without slave labor, the plantations would not have been able to produce the quantities of sugar needed to support large scale of rum production. So this is crazy. While rum was profitable, it was just one part of the larger economy that relied on slave labor. So it was like, it's just amazing, this loop that was created, but it didn't just stop at selling the rum to the slaves for more slaves. The slaves were then able to do other labor. So you will always be able to have slaves as long as you had rum, and you would always have rum as long as you had slaves. I'm blown away by this. This is crazy.
You have no idea who you effing with, Sean Combs. And when Puff was so quick to settle with Cassie, that showed the whole world he was vulnerable. That showed the whole world he had skeletons in his closet. And do you know what I think Diageo did after they settled with Puff? I bet you after they settled with Puff, they probably never even made it to the airplane. They picked up the phone and they called King Charles III. And they said,
Dr. Umar,
dear monarch, dramatic. We need you to dial in a favor for us to President Joe Biden. Because this Sean Puffy Combs, this little nigga out of New York City, he think he can go to war with the big boys and not pay the consequences. Sean Puffy Combs, that hip hop king out of New York, he think he can tell white people what to do. He think he gonna rob us for a couple $2 billion and get away with it. It's not going down. Dear King, please make that call on behalf of your citizens. That's what I believe happened. King Charles picked up the phone. He called Joe Biden or any number of U.S. citizens, any number of U.S. prosecutors. In less than 2 months after Puffy settled with Diageo, his homes were raided. Now, here's the other thing, Art. The reason they did not arrest Puffy until recently, because they could have arrested him then, is they wanted to wait and save this for a time they needed to distract the...
Now, I believe that is complete cap. I think that they were just building their case. They like to have all their ducks in a row, and they were just building their case. They interviewed over 50 victims and 50 victims and witnesses. Now, whether all of these people were victims or not, who knows? But they have witnesses and victims. That's interviewing a lot of people. We're talking about, and there's a lot of information to review. And there's all of this footage that he got because he was recording everything. So to expect them to just arrest him then is crazy. And the fact that they would be holding it to distract black people during this particular time, I think is complete BS.
Black public away from something that they didn't need us getting involved in. The reason he got arrested now is because we're 6 weeks away from the presidential election, and Black America was tearing Kamala Harris's ass up looking for presidential accountability. They were all over Kamala Harris. She couldn't answer no questions. She didn't want to do no interviews. And so the power structure said, let's get him right now. We need something we can throw at Black America. We know they're emotional. We know they care more about hip hop than anything else in their community. Okay, what can we throw Black America to get them off of Kamala Harris's back? Let's throw them Puff. And if you notice, Art, ever since Kamala decided to seek the presidential nomination when Joe Biden stepped down, every conversation in Black Twitter, Black Facebook, Black Instagram, Black TikTok, Black YouTube, everything has been about what? The presidential election. Trump, Kamala, Kamala, Trump. That's all we've been talking about until they arrested Puff. Now go on Black Twitter. Now go on Black Instagram. Now go on Black YouTube. Nobody's talking about Kamala too much no more. Everybody's worried about Puff. That's exactly what they wanted to do. Distract Black America away from the presidential election by throwing them the Puffy lynching so we can get Kamala to the finish line. And guess what? The judges that refused to...
And notice he called it the Puffy lynching. So a lynching, the term he's using here, a lynching, is normally something that we would see as unjustified. We don't really look at lynchings as justified. So even in calling it a lynching, this is something that he's basically, in a way, defending Puff, because a lynching normally would be something that is, one, unjustified, something done without a trial, et cetera, done by a mob, generally on a person that has, like I said, has not been given a trial. And if you haven't been given a trial, then you're normally presumed to be an innocent person. So he's kind of using an interesting term there. And it kind of, that term to me is a suggestion of how he really feels about the situation, even though he's trying to clean it up now. This is why I was saying on my the second installment of this is that basically he's covering for Puff for a particular reason.
Give Puffy bail, from my understanding, they're both Democrats. And you know what's so sad about that? Puffy is a very big Democratic Party contributor. He's a very big Democratic Party supporter. And so the very party that Puff been giving millions to and millions of dollars worth of publicity and advertising is the very party that shut him down. This was a favor that was called in by the British people to the American government. He don't know his place no more. Sit his ass down. And keep on top of that, Art. Puffy started a Black political party called, what was it called? Our Black Party, I think it was, in 2020, after he endorsed Joe Biden. Sean Puffy Combs said out of his own mouth that both political parties keep taking us for granted. They're not offering us anything for our vote. And I think another reason why he was raided when he was raided, Art, was to keep his damn mouth shut so he did not offer his opinion on this presidential election. This whole thing was a takedown of the global white power structure with Diageo, British-based company, at the top. And it was also necessary in order to get Black America off of Kamala Harris's back. Now, let me say this to you, Art. People say Dr. Umar has been defending Puff. If Sean Puffy Combs is guilty of sex trafficking, he should go to jail. If Sean Puffy Combs is guilty of engaging in anything illegal. I'm slow, Art, because I'm saying that the prostitution piece, if somebody wants to get paid for sex, although I don't agree with it, I don't agree he should go to jail for that if it was consensual. So I'm hesitating on the prostitution charge, because if they did this of their own free will in exchange for commerce, even though prostitution is illegal in every state except Nevada, I can't see somebody going down for prostitution when it was a consensual arrangement. The RICO, if he kidnapped people, If he burned people's houses and things down unjustifiably, I could potentially see that as well. But my thing is this. You have black people saying that even if he's innocent of the federal charges, he should go to jail anyway for stomping out Cassie. He should go to jail anyway for taking advantage of people. He should go to jail anyway because we think he has something to do with Big. We think he has something to do with Pac. We think he has something to do with a lot of bad things that went on in the music industry. Here's what I say to that. If Sean Puffy Combs is guilty of the murder of Tupac Shakur or Christopher Wallace directly or indirectly, he should go to jail. But only if it has been proven, Art, in a court of law beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was involved. What I cannot support is black people telling the racist white American criminal justice system that you can lock up one of our own, even if they are innocent, even if you have not proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that they committed the crime, you can still engage in corruption and lock up a black person because we hold them accountable for other crimes that have either not been proven or have thoroughly disgusted us. In other words, Cassie being stomped out by Puff was wrong. It was absolutely wrong. No man should ever put their hands on a woman, but he is not being charged with that. Domestic violence is not the charge. So when I hear black people say he should go to jail even if they can't prove the charges because he did something over here, I cannot co-sign that. Why? Because the history of the American criminal justice system, Art, is a history of black men being convicted in the court of public opinion by white people without sufficient evidence. Look at all the black men who've been lynched, hung. Look at the brother today, Art. We just had a black man in Missouri. Marcellus Williams was executed 1 hour ago. 1 hour ago.
Now, so he's talking about this black, and he was saying all over black Twitter, all over black Instagram, everybody is only talking about Diddy. Black Instagram and black Twitter and all black social media was talking about Marcellus Williams. So what he was saying here wasn't true.
He was innocent. No evidence connects him to the crime, Art. No evidence. There's no physical evidence that proves Marcellus Williams broke into that white woman's home, stabbed her 43 times, left the knife in her neck, and then escaped. He was nowhere near the crime at the time it took place, from what I understand. Even the prosecuting attorney, Art, the DA, says he's now convinced that Marcellus Williams is innocent. He was fighting for him to get exonerated. And guess what the governor of Missouri said yesterday? Guess what the Supreme Court of Missouri said yesterday? We don't care. This is the prosecutor, Art. The prosecutor who convicted him said, I believe he's innocent. And the governor in the Supreme Court of Missouri said, we don't care what you think. He's going to die tomorrow, whether you like it or not. Check it out, Art. When they put the jury together for this black man, and I'm bringing this right back to Puff. When they put the jury together for this black man, there were 7 black jurors, 7 of them. The prosecution dismissed 6. They ended up with 1 black on the jury. Everybody else was white, Art. This black man was convicted. His life was sentenced to death by an all-white jury with 1 black person who was probably too scared to speak out against what the rest of the jury wanted to do. It gets worse than that. I even read that the family of the victim, and of course, our condolences go out to that woman, whether she Caucasian or not. Nobody deserves to die like that, especially not a woman. But I read that her family, Art, also is convinced of his innocence and that her family didn't want him to die. So the victim's family didn't want him to die, at least some of the members. The prosecutor don't want him to die. And then the knife, the weapon itself, Art, could not properly be tested for his DNA because the police and the prosecution who handled the weapon after the murder accidentally tainted the weapon. So they couldn't even use the knife to exonerate this black man. And it's a damn shame. He just died an hour ago. So when you hear me say, I don't want to see Puffy Combs, Dr. Umar, my brother Art, I don't want to see nobody go to jail for something they didn't do, is rooted in the criminal injustices that we as black people have been suffering from in this country for 4 sentences. I have no special loyalty to Sean Puffy Combs. I don't know him. He's never donated to my school. We never talked on the phone. It ain't got nothing personal. Don't tell white people that you don't care about justice for black people. The court is for justice. It is not for revenge. If we want to hold a tribunal for Puff, let's do it. If we want to convict Puff, let's do it. But you don't tell your enemy that you can lock up one of mine and throw away the key, even if you can't prove he's guilty, because white people have done that for 400 years. Look at Vince McMahon, Art. Look at Vince McMahon of the WWE. Vince McMahon was...
Now, this is something that I don't like. Now we're going to get into, I want to be able to do what the white man does, or the white man does it, so whatever. I can't stand this. We're getting close to the end of me getting ready to cut it off, especially if he makes the, because I haven't heard a lot of this part. He makes the Hugh Hefner comparison. I'm probably just going to go ahead and wrap up the show.
Accused of in sex trafficking, okay, multiple times, allegedly. This woman says that Vince McMahon forced her to have sex with different men, different women. He defecated on her head. He defecated on her head, and while she was covered in human feces, he forced her to continue to engage in sexual trafficking. This went on for a period of time. He was never arrested. The federal government claims to be investigating Vince McMahon, but his homes have never been raided. Look at how Vince McMahon has been treated, and look at Sean Puffy Combs. Not for the sake of Puff Art. This is not about Puff. This is a case study in how they deal with black people. I'm not thinking about Puffy. I'm thinking about my people. But the immaturity of American Africans, they can't separate subject from object. Puffy is the object. He ain't the subject. The subject is justice for black people. I will never tell the criminal justice system that you can prosecute and convict one of mine illegally without due process of law because I'm still upset over something he did over here that has nothing to do with the charges bringing him into court. I didn't read nothing about pedophilia. Nowhere in the indictment did they mention underage children. But I hear people talking about underage children. And then, Art, every time the news comes on, they keep showing us the Cassie video. Cassie got $30 million. She settled out of court. That don't excuse what he did. But she's moved on with her life, Art. So if Cassie took her $30 million back to her white husband and moved on with her life, why is C-SPAN and CNN and ABC and Fox News and NBC keep showing us the Cassie video? They keep showing us 1,000 bottles of baby oil. It's not illegal to have 1,000 bottles of baby oil. Is it a little sick? Yes. Is it ridiculous? Yes. Does it point to the fact that Sean Puffy Combs might be a sexual deviant? Hell yes, but it is not a crime. And for all the people who say he should go to jail for being a sexual deviant, you didn't say that when Hugh Hefner was in a Playboy mansion.
It was coming.
Hugh Hefner had a living freak off through his whole career. He was never accused of interstate sex trafficking. How is Sean Puffy Combs any different than Hugh Hefner? Look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump was tried in court last year, and it was proven in a court of law that he was guilty of being a woman. They called it sex abuse, and then the judge clarified that even though the language is sex abuse, it was in fact proven that Donald Trump that white woman? Why are black people still saying they're going to vote for Donald Trump? If we care about women so much, Donald Trump was held liable in court of last year, and you still have black people running around saying they're going to vote for Donald Trump. What about all the black children in the Roman Catholic Church who've been sex trafficked in? We still belong to the Roman Catholic Church. I'm trying to understand this selective morality of black people. And how dare the U.S. government try to prosecute any black person for sex abuse when you engaged in the longest, most egregious sex trafficking campaign in human history known as the African slave trade. Are you kidding me? Look at all the hundreds of women, black women, Thomas Jefferson. Look at the hundreds of black women, George Washington. Slavery was sex trafficking, and America has never paid restitution for that. But you want to go and get black people and prosecute them. I'm not against criminals being held accountable. I'm not against Sean Combs being held accountable if he is guilty. I'm simply saying to my people, let this be handled in a court of law and not in a court of public opinion. Because if we are okay with Puffy's trial being held in the court of public opinion, we can never again get angry at a group of white people who choose to lynch a black man outside of court because they have already made up their mind that he's guilty before he has been proven so in a court of law. And I'm telling you, Art, if Puff could do it over, I don't think he settles with Cassie overnight. I think he realizes when he did that, he showed his hand. Diageo saw it, and they called in their favor. And I'm going to tell you something else they're doing to distract us from this presidential election, Art. The Sean Puffy Combs situation is a distraction. And I want to go to our late brother, rest in peace to him, and nothing but love and respect to his family, community. I love Memphis. It's a second home to me. And that is our brother, Young Dolph. Young Dolph was executed 3 years ago. And those who are responsible for Young Dolph's murder should be held accountable for it. But why did the power structure wait until 5 weeks before the election? 6 weeks.
See, this is the stupid shit that I'm talking about. That case was wrapped up. It really didn't get the media attention that it should have, but it looks like they got the convictions that they needed. And they didn't wait. I mean, like, that's just a way that things played out. It's just like the conspiracy theory, the kufi he got on must really just be like, man.
Before the election to finally start the trial for Young Dolph's alleged murderers. Why now? Why now? Because you want to take Black America's attention off the presidential election. So you got two major trials going on right now, Art. You got the Sean Puffy Combs 3-count federal indictment, and you got the murder trial for Young Dolph. Two very popular, very successful hip-hop moguls. One murdered and the other accused of high crimes, and you're going to put them both before us 6 weeks before there's a presidential election. Tell me this isn't a scapegoat for Kamala Harris. And don't get me wrong, we can walk and chew bubble gum. We can listen to music and read the newspaper, right? I can chew and breathe at the same time. So I'm not saying we cannot pay attention to that most important Young Dolph murder trial and pay attention to the presidential race. I'm not saying we can't pay attention to the Sean Puffy Combs proceedings and pay attention to the presidential race. We can.
All right. I guess the video stopped itself, and so I'm going to take that as a sign to stop it. If you guys haven't followed the Young Dolph trial, it concluded yesterday. Not the Young Dolph trial, because Young Dolph, of course, is not on trial. Rest in peace to Young Dolph. A lot of respect for Young Dolph coming out of Memphis. He was somebody that gave back to his community, had an independent grind. Not always a fan of the subject matter on every song, but I think that Young Dolph had a good heart. I always seen him giving back. And unfortunately, these Negroes niggas that were responsible for his death used the fact that they knew that he would be doing a turkey drive. They knew he would be giving back to his community, and they used that as an opportunity to plan his murder. And so there were two hitmen that carried out the joint. Apparently, the way that the prosecution spelled everything out is that Young Dolph and Yo Gotti were beefing. Yo Gotti's brother, Big Jook, put $100,000 hit out on Young Dolph. And basically the guy that he had that didn't actually carry out the hit, but he contracted to do the hit, took $20,000 off top. So now there's $80,000 left for the two shooters. They kill Young Dolph, and basically the shooter that did most of the shooting, and I believe he may have even gotten shot in the process of trying to kill Young Dolph, he didn't even get his half of the $80,000. So the other guy who like got out the car later or whatever, he basically took $80,000 and gave his co-conspirator $800. And so that basically led to this guy just snitching. And with him snitching, I think somebody else cooperated. So the only person that took it to trial was the guy that was on trial. He was found guilty on conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, and having a firearm as a felon. He got convicted on all three, already sentenced to life for the murder conviction. And I think the conspiracy to murder conviction, he also got life. And I think later in November, he's going to get hit with the rest of he's going to get sentenced for the gun charge, which shouldn't even matter because now he has life. And this guy is a guy that's probably in his 20s. So that's crazy. And he hasn't really learned his lesson. He's still on the internet after he was sentenced to life. Somehow he got on the internet talking about he didn't bite the cheese, basically bragging that he wasn't a snitch, which is crazy. But Young Dolph, definitely a legend. Rest in peace to him. He was a family man, and it's just an unfortunate story the way that was carried out over pure hatred. And to me, it just seemed to be unnecessary, especially with someone that was always giving away things, giving away Lamborghinis, giving away turkeys in the community, supporting black businesses. So at the time that they killed him, not only did they know that he was having a turkey drive, he was showing up to a black business. The cookie spot is a black business to support them, which I don't even know if they did right by him in the end, but it is what it is. This was a guy with a good heart, and it's just unfortunate. And I don't believe that his trial was used as a distraction for the election. I think that is wild, to say the least. So the last part that I'm going to wrap up with today, and this kind of goes back to my voodoo thing that I was talking about earlier in the show. I found this to be interesting in terms of spiritual things and spiritual connections, etc. And Beanie Siegel did an interview recently where he talked about Jay-Z rapping with Biggie's chain on. And so I just want to play a clip of that, and then I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. But like the Jay-Z, when he would record his albums, he had a ritual that he would do. And this ritual involved him wearing the chain of the late B.I.G.
A little ritual. I know he'll always, when he was working on his albums, he would wear Biggie chain. His Cuban with the Jesus piece, Jay rock that. He wasn't getting no cut neither until he finished the album. Other than that little ritual right there, that thing he did, Jay ain't had no process.
I ain't know that, man. So when he'll work on an album, he'll wear a chain that he got from Big and he wouldn't get a cut.
Yeah, he'll wear a big personal chain. That was Biggie chain.
Wow.
Yeah, he would wear that.
Damn. And you never seen him pick up a pen or a paper?
Never. Yeah, that's a different kind of skill set.
So I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. I thank you so much for listening, brothers and sisters. I've been on here for like an hour and a half now, almost. So I appreciate you guys riding out with me for this time period. And feel free to hit me up as always, Instagram, Facebook, email, etc. Peace until the next episode of the Gospel of Malcolm X. Where will hip-hop be 30 years from now? I guess I should keep studying my peers for now. Should I make a dance and snap thumbs? Fast hi-hats, 808 back drums. Are we selling our souls for 32 pieces of gold? If it's lacking in soul, how can it remain whole? We make music for stripper pose, but no music to think. That's that short-term money that we put in the bank. But the genre's going backwards. I see devolution instead of evolution. This is soul prostitution. The children are fumbling. Even got the elders encouraging, mumbling, watching them stumbling. Day after day is so humbling. Meanwhile, our stock has been plummeting. And they telling me I need to sound like these other niggas. Grown-ass men trying to sound like the younger niggas. Used to have balance. Back in the days we had talent. Trying to be original was the challenge. Now all these niggas sound the same. And all the beats pound the same. Same cadence, same drums, all that shit sounded lame. 20 niggas trying to sound like Future. And I love rockin' Future, but that style is for future. Think you niggas need a different producer. Hope that bullshit crash your computer. Ain't nothing cool about being a loser.